welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod and our 5th episode of Lightspeed, bringing you Star Wars news and headlines right to your headphones in under 15 minutes. Today we had a huge announcement from Lucasfilm releasing the title of their new games company going forward called Lucasfilm Games. Now, I'm reading off the Star Wars blog site here. Lucasfilm's legacy in gaming stretches back decades. And with Lucasfilm and the galaxy far, far away entering a new and unprecedented phase of creativity, so will the world of Lucasfilm Games, developed in collaboration with the finest studios across the industry. StarWars.com is thrilled to reveal that Lucasfilm Games is now the official identity for all gaming titles from Lucasfilm. A name that encompasses the company's rich catalog of video games and its eye toward the future. To mark this new era, Lucasfilm Games has launched the social channels on Twitter, which is at Lucasfilm Games, and Facebook at Lucasfilm Games, which will deliver breaking news and more directly to fans. You can watch a special sizzle reel celebrating the history of games from Lucasfilm below. The Lucasfilm Games logo featured above will appear in all future Lucasfilm game titles. Stay tuned to StarWars.com for more on Lucasfilm Games. So that right there is an article published today. And I've got the sizzle reel playing behind me right now. It's a montage of all the recent Star Wars games and future games. It's a very cool video. That is awesome. So we got clips of The Sims 4 Batuu, Jedi Fallen Order, Star Wars Squadrons, Battlefront 2, Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, all that stuff. So, I mean, be sure to check it out. And very exciting news going forward with a new label for Star Wars games being Lucasfilm Games. So, I mean, very appropriate. I mean, the company operates under Lucasfilm for the movies, and having Lucasfilm Games control the games aspect of Star Wars is also really, really cool. And this could also very well encompass other Lucasfilm properties. I mean, very similar to how LucasArts Entertainment was the previous publishing logo that they used for a lot of the games that Lucasfilm did. I mean, going forward, it's possible we could get new Indiana Jones games, or maybe a new Monkey Island, or maybe a Willow game or something like that. Who knows, right? So other Lucasfilm properties do exist, and Lucasfilm Games could be the title that they use to launch all this stuff. And very, very well, as Lucasfilm was wholly acquired by Disney in 2012, they announced that LucasArts was essentially shutting down, but keeping in the name it was shutting down, but keeping the division itself to handle licensing and stuff to third-party developers, which ended up primarily being Electronic Arts, which a lot of people I know weren't a huge fan of. But what can you do, right? So they've really turned their image around lately with Star Wars Squadrons and Battlefront 2. They did a 180 on that one. And they've got other stuff in development. I mean, they had the Sims 4 Batuu game. They've got sequels to Jedi Fallen Order. So I hope going forward that Lucasfilm Games really does just start to widen the spectrum of studios that we have working on Star Wars games and Indiana Jones games, perhaps. I mean, being a revitalized Lucasfilm Games brand, I believe in a long time ago, I think Lucasfilm Games actually was the title for LucasArts, and then I believe it became LucasArts. But so this is kind of homage to what it was known originally, I believe. And that's just according to the Wikipedia page, but I mean, anyone can edit that, so don't quote me on that one. But yeah, I mean, it's exciting news to know that they have a lot in store for games as well. I mean, with December just only a month ago, we had a lot of news giving us a bright future of things based in comics and books and novels and stuff. I mean, with the High Republic launching as of this month. And then, of course, they announced all the series that we're going to get on Disney Plus, which are going to be taking place in the era of the New Republic, as well as the era of the High Republic. So they're focusing in on those two eras there. And we didn't really get a whole lot of news as far as games go. And Star Wars games have always had a huge history with the fandom and with the franchise. And my favorite Star Wars game has always been Battlefront 2 and Republic Commando, and the original Star Wars Battlefront 2. I really loved Star Wars Starfighter back in the day. Knights of the Old Republic has a huge following. And off of those games have spurred more games, and so on and so forth. A lot of people really looking forward to the 1313 game that we never got either. So there's a lot of potential now with a new label. It gives me hope that we're going to see a lot more from Star Wars games in the future, and a lot of bright news there. So that's Lucasfilm Games for you guys. Now, I'm curious what your favorite Star Wars game is. So send an email into theescapepod@outlook.com, or shoot us a tweet at SWEscapePodcast. Let us know what your favorite Star Wars game is, and elaborate just how many hours did you play that game? How much did you love that game? Do you still play that game? Are you hoping for a sequel to that game? Whatever it is, let us know. I mean, there's so many options out there. Force Unleashed, I totally forgot to bring that one up, but that's also a fan favorite of many people. So let us know. I'm really curious to see how many of you guys have a favorite Star Wars game out there and what it is. So we have a lot of upcoming book releases and such on to sort of talk about as well. Now, here's what's coming up here. Looking at obviously all the High Republic stuff that launched. I mean, we had Light of the Jedi from Charles Soule launch on the 5th, as well as A Test of Courage by Justina Ireland. And the Marvel High Republic series also launched with issue number 1 this week. And we also had Star Wars number 10 from the Charles Soule Star Wars series that takes place between episode 5 and 6. That also launched this past week as well. We have a Star Wars Galactic storybook for kids, and a Knitting the Galaxy. It's a Star Wars book based on knitting different types of Star Wars projects, which is kind of nice. And one of those classic little golden book style children's books called A Galaxy for Everybody, or A Galaxy for Everyone, sorry. And we also had Star Wars The High Republic, The Great Jedi Rescue launch, also a children's book. And Star Wars Bounty Hunters came out with a new issue, number 8. That launched on the 23rd, as well as Smuggler's Run number 1, which also launched on the 23rd of December as well. So this is old news now, but just so that it gets covered, if you didn't listen to our previous light speeds, or if I forgot to bring it up, there is a tremendous amount of Star Wars news to cover at times, and honestly, at times it's hard to keep track of it all. Coming up in the next couple days, we'll have the Mandalorian Junior novel, as well as a Star Wars book called I Love You, I Know, Lessons in Love and Friendship. We have a single issue comic from the Star Wars Adventures lineup, which will be number 5, and Darth Vader number 9 from the new Darth Vader series by Greg Pak that also takes place between episodes 5 and 6. On January 13th, we'll have a single issue coming in for Star Wars Adventures, which is issue number 4. And later on next week, we'll have a few other items, including more Star Wars Adventures, another Star Wars Adventures Smuggler Run issue, Dr. Aphra returns, and The Mandalorian gets a Screen Comics magazine, which comes out on the 26th. So lots to look forward to. I mean, there's always some Star Wars stuff to chat about. So you can always get your news and headlines right here on Star Wars Escape Pod with our Lightspeed series. And going forward, I also have a few announcements as far as episodes that we're going to get on the podcast. So we have a very interesting magazine that is surfaced, and a friend of mine actually was digging through some old Star Wars things, and they're getting rid of some stuff. But there's a very interesting headline in one of the magazines that has to do with the Clone Wars. And this magazine was actually published back in, I think it was 1980 or something like that. So I'm picking it up later today. But that'll be a very interesting article. And we're actually going to go over it in an episode titled Why Watch the Clone Wars? And or maybe I'll retitle that, I don't know. But we're going to have Diego coming back on the show from our Clone Wars Talk series. And he's made maybe like 1 or 2 appearances since that series happened. But he's been a busy guy and has recently freed up enough that he's able to give some time and chat more about some Clone Wars, why people should watch it, why fans would love it, and what did the Clone Wars mean when Ben Kenobi told Luke about it way back in 1977. Like, what were your thoughts? If you were alive in 1977 and saw Star Wars in the theater, and Ben Kenobi talked about the Clone Wars, what kind of mental image did you have? And how does that compare to what we got as far as George's vision and what he intended that to be? So I'm very curious to chat to some people about this, read this magazine article, and just get right into why Clone Wars is such a big deal. So we have an episode dedicated to all that stuff, as well as promoting our Clone Wars Talk series, which is a 40-part sub-series on this show. If you're planning on watching the Clone Wars, it's a great way to go back and just re-experience that show in chronological order. If you've never seen it before, it's also a good idea to check out Clone Wars Talk episode number 1. You might have to scroll back a little ways because I believe it was published in 2019. But we go through that show beginning to end, and check out the description box of each podcast episode before you listen to it, because that's where we list the episodes that we watch in order, top to down. And, so that's the order that you go through. And then after you're done, when you got time, if you're going for a walk or taking a drive to work or whatever, you can tune into the Clone Wars Talk episode that kind of discusses the episodes that you just watched at home. So, these days in isolation, I know people are looking forward to shows to watch and after shows to listen to. So it's a great way to experience the Clone Wars, as you get to hear Diego and I chat about Star Wars: The Clone Wars. And by the time we're finished with those 40 episodes, I mean, you'll be a Clone Wars master, let me tell you. So we also have a sub-series called Explained, which is going to be kind of covering some more recent questions that a lot of people have had when they watched The Mandalorian Season 2. So we're going to be doing one dedicated to Darth Maul and the Darksaber, one about Thrawn, Bo-Katan, Boba Fett, Ahsoka. All these are going to be sort of episodes dedicated to the life and legend of these characters and where they are so far in the story. And it's a good way to catch up on some of these stories if you haven't actually watched those animated shows already. But the best way to get those stories is honestly just to watch them for yourself. That's my first recommendation every time. There's no way to experience Star Wars other than seeing Star Wars. So we also got a review coming up for Star Wars Squadrons, and another one dedicated to the VR game Tales from a Galaxy's Edge. And finally, coming up on the show, we have a Rebels Talk series featuring Diego from our Clone Wars Talk series, which is basically going to be the same principle. We're going to be watching Rebels and creating an after show series for you guys to go through for any of you guys watching that show as well. So thanks again for tuning in, guys. May the Force be with you, and we'll see you next time on Star Wars Escape Pod.